Good evening to everyone here and a very happy new year. Welcome to this webinar on management in COVID times, the talent and skills expected from young managers. I'd like to welcome our panel in the beginning itself, Professor Rajesh Agarwal, our chairperson of the one-year MBA Programs Committee, Professor Y. Shekhar, our in charge for the Center of Digital Enterprise. And we're extremely excited to be joined by Mr. Kamesh Mullapudi. He currently leads the strategy and analytics as well as mergers and acquisitions business lines for Deloitte US firms operations in India. He is a strategy practitioner with a particular focus in innovating and transforming business models by co-creating solutions that address immediate, intermediate, and long-term challenges for his client's business. His team consists of a mix of business graduates, data science and data management professionals, and technologists. He leads a team of nearly 4,000 practitioners. He actively shares his experience with various university students through programs on solving problems related to growth, business models, and innovation. We are also privileged that he is an active and involved as our advisory board member for the DEM program. Welcome, sir, and welcome professors as well to the call.
Thank you.
So I'd like to request Kamesh sir to take over the presentation with some of his inputs on management in the COVID times.
Sure. Thank you, Uttara, and a very happy new year to all of you. Nothing like being cold called to be the first one to speak. So let me do my best here. So let's start with the good news, right? So there are a few and very promising vaccines out there which have been approved by various governments. And we're talking about kind of managing in COVID time. So I thought I should kind of start with where we are, kind of set the boundaries for what we're talking about, and maybe spend a bit of time on what we're observing within the businesses across the world. So assuming these vaccines work, and barring any new revelations around new strains or side effects that might limit usage of the vaccines, we're probably looking at a timeline of 6 to 12 months to getting back to normal. That's at least my perspective, right? And at least in Deloitte, we are preparing ourselves for maintaining the status quo of working from home for another 4 to 6 months, and then reevaluate how things evolve from there. The second, perhaps broad topic, businesses across the world have navigated through last year with remarkable resiliency and generally survived what I call the largest disruption that any of the current generation of leaders have seen in their professional lives. Right? I think each of us that have spent 20, 25 years or more have seen some sort of a disruption in the world, financial crises or .com or 9/11 when I was in the US, the terrorist attacks on US soil, things along those lines. They were disruptions for sure. But I think what we are seeing now is a global scale that impacted every part of the globe the same way, and caught everyone kind of unawares and unprepared. And I don't think there is a single executive that I have had a conversation with in the last 9 months or 10 months who's expected or anticipated this, right? And confirmed views of many of these executives across sectors is that the acceleration of digital transformation that they have seen of their businesses would in normal times have taken 8 to 10 years, and they were forced to move pretty much overnight in order to survive. So, let's not underestimate the power, the collective power that we have to change if we are pushed to change or if we choose to change. The next one, of course, is the topic du jour, right? Working from home is not a nice to have. It's not just a well-being perk. It's not just an option that we provide our employees. It is how work will get done in the future. Now, I understand that things will get back to normal and people would want to kind of be among their colleagues and all that. But if you think about the operational expenditure benefits to organizations, from rental payments to capital expenditure, those that invest in real estate and things like that, the, the, the drop in those expenses is so high that despite COVID and despite the impact of COVID, not many organizations, I mean, outside of travel and hospitality and things like that, have seen a drop in their net incomes or profitability, right? Which is just phenomenal because they've done away with all of this expenditure that they didn't have to do because the employees are working from home. So I believe that that's going to stay for a while to come. So again, I just started with three broad groups of themes, right? Vaccines, what that might do, businesses, how they adapted, and the workforce, and what's changing from in terms of where they work and what they'll do. With that background, maybe let me try to summarize what it means for the student that's aspiring to get into this program, or students that are already in the program, right? So a business leader of the future, which many of you are aspiring to become, you need to be agile in your thinking, agile in your learning, and agile in your ability to respond back to challenges in the moment, right? You can't plan for some of these things, which means you have to be prepared for it. The perennial paranoia, if you will, right? The next comment is, and I love this, just every time I drive the car, the rear view mirror, there is this printed line that says objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. And I think the disruptive or transformative changes that we all see on the horizon can happen much faster than we are prepared for them. Whether you call it blockchain or AI or machine learning or automation, all of the buzzwords that you are hearing now that you think will happen at some point in the future will be critical business functions in the very near future, not in the far out future, right? So we need to be prepared for that. Coming back to the topic around working from home, developing empathy towards your colleagues, your kind of fellow students or future co-workers, without having to interact with them in physical space is going to be extremely critical, because we may not be able to develop that personal relationship and trust that we've all relied on as humankind for millennia in the same way in the future as we've been able to do in the past. So your ability to work in this hybrid domain of, some time in a physical space and most of the time away from a physical space with your coworkers, developing trust and relationships and those productive interactions, if you will, with your coworkers becomes significantly important as you survive and succeed in the organizations. What is interesting about this last comment is I'm already hearing that there are organizations out there in the world, especially the English-speaking world, that are beginning to explore the idea of having employees outside of their borders, because people can work from home, right? Well, if you're a New York-based entity and you have employees sitting in Dallas, except for the time zone difference, how is it different from employees sitting in New Delhi, right? And if I have the ability to find someone and employ someone in a completely different geography by paying them more, it will be cheaper than my local market, but I might actually end up getting the same level of productivity or more than what I have right now. So it's an interesting dynamic, obviously requires tax law changes and a whole bunch of other things, but all of those will catch up, right? Governments always react to what the business's needs are, and they put protective kind of regulation around it, but that will happen for sure. So again, with those comments, I'll just say the future is exciting. It's full of change. And as I see it, it's going to be a reality show of a science fiction movie that we've all watched. So buckle up, be ready, and I'm really, really excited to interact with you today and answer any questions you might have. Back to you, Uttara. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that perspective. For all of our listeners, I think it will be very, very important to look at it from those three different aspects. I'll now invite Professor Rajesh and Professor Jacob to walk us through the actual DEM program and what it's equipping our prospective students for.
Thank you very much, Uttara. Good evening to all the participants of today's webinar. And thank you, Mr. Kamesh, for joining us today and talking to the participants. And I'm sure words coming from you mean a lot to them because you are speaking from what you experience from the industry perspective. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. So moving to the next slide, if you can. Right. So basically, in this slide, very quickly, we talk to you about the admissions. Like this is one of your top of the mind issue. First thing is that you can apply into this program either with a GRE score or a GMAT score or a CAT score, but these have to be valid scores. You need at least 3 years of full-time work experience. And this is an on-campus residential program. Of course, at this moment, it is being done online because of the situation. Otherwise, it's a full-time residential program. So 1-year program, but the end of this program, basically you get an MBA in digital enterprise management. Lots of participants have questions around what is the minimum score that one needs to have in these tests. I'd like to state upfront that we don't have a specific cutoff in mind. When we evaluate a candidate's application, we look at the application in its totality, which means your scores, your kind of experience, your interest into the program, and whether you are the right person who will benefit from the program. And from that perspective, the admissions committee evaluates your application on an overall basis, right? So moving to the next slide, let me very quickly tell you about the design that has gone behind this program. So it's a very unique program as we believe this is the only program in the country where we are trying to bring together the concepts of management and the context is digital. And that's why we call it a digital enterprise management program. Mr. Kamesh, a little while ago, was talking about the business disruptions and things of that kind. This is a new world out there. In any case, there was a new world out there because of the progress that the world has witnessed in the field of digital, and more so because of the pandemic, it has further hastened some of the initiatives and disruptions which one had not experienced before. So what you will experience in this course, first off, is business fundamentals, management fundamentals, which are basically introduced to you in terms of core courses. Then what we do is we help you, we teach you these concepts and the application of these management concepts in the digital organization, focusing basically on concepts, practices, and methods. So how do you apply these management in the digital context? When we say anything is digital, by and large, we refer to technology and data, right? Digital, at the heart of digital is data and technology. So by introducing data and technology, the participants start appreciating the role and the relevance of these in the digital world and how these are involved in creating, managing, and analyzing data, right? That's the key purpose. Having done these courses, then you try and apply these learnings in a specific industry vertical. So for example, it could be a retail vertical or fintech or social sector or marketing, manufacturing, whole host of things. And then you learn basically the application of the concepts thus far in a specific industry vertical. And then as we move further, there is an opportunity for you to apply whatever you have learned through a simulation project, through a lab project where you work as in an organization and you have opportunity to work on real life problems faced by a company, an opportunity to contribute to solving that problem. And that's your chance to get a hands-on experience into solving problems of the company. So I would like to emphasize one thing. This is not a technical program in digital or data or technology, right? If your aspiration is to do that, this is not the right program. This is a program in managing this aspect of digital. And that is the basically what we are saying is a uniqueness of this program. And what that's why we call it is a program in digital enterprise management, right? Okay, moving forward. So if you look at the DEM courses, we talked about the business management fundamental courses, which will cover a whole host of things like accounting, finance, statistics, marketing, operations, organization behavior, strategy. All these are the courses that you come across as a business fundamental courses. And then as we move forward, you can see there, then we do the courses on the fundamentals of digital management. And then you do courses such as agile or design thinking or digital marketing or digital transformation and things of that kind, right? And then, as I said, there are technology and data specific courses that where we do your blockchain, IoT, cloud technology, etc. And moving forward, then I talked to you a while ago that you will have the opportunity to take this learning to a specific industry vertical such as fintech, healthcare, social sector, B2B marketing, and that gives you a holistic perspective. But your entire course basically ends in the last two terms. You have opportunity to apply your learnings in a specific company problem situation, and at the same time you continue to do courses in design thinking. But the most important is capstone enterprise simulation. Capstone is the one which brings all these concepts that you have done throughout the year together in a manner that it is integrative and holistic, right? Because you would appreciate that the problems an organization faces are not in silos, right? These are the silos that we create. Like this is a marketing problem, finance problem, HR problem, but in reality, they are business problems, right? And this is where we don't want you to walk away from this program thinking with those compartments and silos. And that's where the value of a capstone exercise in bringing all these concepts together so that you walk away with the integrated, holistic perspective of not only identifying problems, but also solving them. So problem solving is what managers do. And this is what is the running focus of our program throughout. So what I'm going to do is to stop here for the moment, but we'll be happy to answer any question that you may have in the Q&A section. So over to back to Uttara.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to hand over to Professor Shekhar to walk us through exactly what the Center for Digital Enterprise actually deals with. Professor Shekhar, over to you.
Thank you, Uttara. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen who are attending this program, and a very warm welcome and a happy new year to Kamesh. The Center for Digital Enterprise is about 2 years old now, and it was created under the umbrella of the IIMU brand to actually foster thinking, research, activities, knowledge creation, anything else that you can think of around digital. The theme is digital. So whatever we want to do here will have digital playing an important role. So be it at a policy level, be it at a practice level, be it at a framework level or a research, or even a problem solving to a specific organization's requirements, would be the kind of activities that the center is actually focused on doing. And one of the activities that the center is working on is to create the talent pool for the digital world. The course DEM has been designed to create managerial and leadership talents for the digital world, where we believe that the existing knowledge base may not be adequate to solve problems of the future, which require a different perspective, a different thinking, which normally comes out of a large amount of experience that you have in the corporate world. So everybody cannot wait to get into their 40s and 50s to solve problems that are going to happen next year and year later. So how can the young breed understand these and therefore be equipped to handle the challenges that the digital market is going to throw at them? And that's what this course is all about. So I'll quickly take you as to what the center is working on. Critical to this program is the alliance activities with the industry. Digital is recent. It is new in many contexts. There aren't too many background material or cases or trends for us to actually teach if we look at it purely from an academic perspective. It is an evolving subject. So the best teachers are those who have experienced digital in real life. And that's why we collaborate with the industry, who come up with real problem situations, how they tackled it, or what kind of management concepts they applied to solving them, or what kind of new problems can emerge from having solved an earlier problem, which can also become activities like projects for students to work on, or for interested faculty members to pick them up as activities of research. So we look at the industry alliance to be very, very core to the activities that we're doing in digital. And in the first year, we've kind of experienced that almost three-fourths of these sessions that are being taught by people from the industry. So that gets us closer to what the industry wants and hopefully helps us in the last activity, which is placement, which is something that's crucial and most relevant for the participants. Now, placements happen largely because the students coming out of this program are now closer to the needs of the industry. And that's where we see the traction coming in, that there is input coming from the industry, which gets converted into an academic curriculum and then goes back as knowledge base to the industry to serve it better. That's a cycle that we're creating through this particular alliance. And this also provides us a lot of opportunities to work on future activities, which become a source for new knowledge. And managing all this is the advisory board. So Kamesh is already here, who's an advisory member and is very active. So, which is why I'm really grateful and thankful for him to be here today and have spoken to you all. There are people from the management consulting firms who look at it at a strategic level. There are technology companies that give us solutions as to how problems can be solved, consumer companies that come up with the problems or the challenges that businesses are going to face. And of course, the people on the right are those who kind of either founded or are at very senior levels in the new form of business enterprises, which is the digital platform organizations. Right on top are two academicians who are involved in bringing in the academic content or the perceptions academic institutions must have in making sure that the collective knowledge of the industry is converted into an academic rigor that the students can actually understand and appreciate. So this is a kind of a well thought through board, which is very active and has provided a lot of inputs to the curriculum that you saw a little earlier when Rajesh was explaining about the structure, the kind of balance that is required between technology and management, and what kind of skills the students of this program must actually be able to display eventually for them to be suitable for the corporate world. So one of the highlights of this engagement and the experience that students of DEM program would have is the working on projects. Now, unlike a typical project, which is conceptual or writing a paper, the projects that we're talking about here are actually intending to dirty your hands. There are two projects, one on technology, one on analytics. Every student needs to work on it. And every student contributes to actually developing a solution that is demonstrable. So the entire work that you're doing is like creating something which can be showcased, and that becomes part of the evaluation. The evaluation is done with industry participation as well as faculty involvement, plus anybody else who gets invited to be part of that panel of evaluators. So the whole experience here is to take a concept or a problem, use technology to solve that problem, and then showcase the entire path of how the problem was solved and what is the new solution that the industry can adopt. That's what the technology experience is all about. Analytics, on the other hand, is an experience to deal with data, large sets of data, complex sets of data, to figure out where the data actually resides or to infer points of patterns that can become the basis for decision making at workplace. So here too, that there are problems given and data needs to be sourced, and through the experience of managing data, students understand what are the complexities of having to work in the analytics side. Experiences are very unique as part of the course curriculum. And we kind of highlight this because this gives you a clear feel as to how to deal with technology and business at the same time. In neither case are we testing you or demanding that you need to come up with technology as the background or technology skills as something as a prerequisite. We look at it in the context of saying, how have you applied technology or how have you applied the knowledge of data science in the context of solving a business problem? So that's how the emphasis is. And the experience, therefore, is very unique. I would like to touch upon placement. This is the first batch that's doing its course. They are towards the fag end of term 2. And we are actually fortunate that 40% batch is already placed. And this in itself is a big thing for a program that's just started off. And the kind of market environment we were told it was until Kamesh spoke a little while ago, that sometime in October, November, the entire sentiment was kind of low and people were very conservative about their approaches. But looks like from December and now into Jan, there is a lot more of aggression and optimism that's coming. And we are hopeful of getting a lot more companies into the campus for placement. Now, the kinds of companies that have come in are really worth mentioning. And you can see them. There's Accenture, there is Deloitte, and there is Cognizant. They're all on the management consulting and tech consulting areas. And the kinds of roles that these students have been offered are also very interesting. So from a business analyst to a tech consultant who looks at developing business strategies using technology, to actually looking at an emerging role which is called as a digital experience manager. So digital experience manager is a new form where it cuts across all the functions, looks at it from a customer's experience point of view, and then puts all the solutions back into place, be it from sourcing to actually the customer experiencing the usage of the product. So it's a vast role that's becoming pretty popular, and we are happy that students from the DEM program are getting placed in such roles. Of course, compensation is the other big factor. Right now, our running average is a shade under 20.6 lakhs. We are in that zone at the moment, which in other words, if you look at it from a return on investment perspective, the fee that you pay, if you consider that as the basis, your return on investment is less than a year, or it's less than 11 months. So that leads me to talking about the experience. And rather than I speak about it, I would invite Uttara, who's the student of the DEM program, speak about it so you hear it firsthand.
Thank you, Professor Shekhar, for allowing me the opportunity to share this experience with prospective students. From my point of view, I think, and I can speak on behalf of that, it's that it's truly been a transformational experience. I think we hear this a lot when we talk about MBAs in general, but the DEM program has allowed us to really take that management knowledge that we've gained through a typical MBA, but apply it through the lens of a digital viewpoint. In fact, it's something of a kind of a metamorphosis almost in terms of where we first, when we started the program, how we viewed ourselves in terms of our capabilities and our aptitudes, and how we've then been able to transition through the input apart from the curriculum and the projects that you had mentioned, sir, in terms of aid in terms of resume and interview prep, through input from industry leaders, Kamesh sir being one of them, who so generously spoke to us once before as well. Through experiential learning, where we, as both professors had mentioned, in terms of our projects that we get to do, design thinking live project, in addition to the other two projects, the tech and the analytics project, as well as subject-specific projects that really allow us to put that conceptual understanding to the test. And through a very helpful initiative of personalized executive coaching for each student, both on an individual level as well as on a group level. So all of these together kind of prepared us for the placements, as well as allowed us to really feel like we had transformed through this one-year program, despite the duration seeming like it might be relatively shorter than the typical two-year MBA. So that's just a little bit on our experience. I'd like to hand over to Professor Rajesh to walk us through the next couple of slides. Professor, you're on mute, unfortunately.
Sorry. Thank you, Uttara, for sharing your experiences as a participant of this program, and that I'm sure would be helpful for the prospective applicants to appreciate the quality of this program. So if you were to ask this question, why should I apply in the DEM program? And we have few thoughts to share with you. The first is that we believe it's a unique program for reasons more than one. First of all, digital is the future, as you would agree, right? Now, a program which is not a technical one, but helps you appreciate the management, application of management concepts in the context of digital, we believe this is a unique program within the country. So, and it's a very comprehensive program with multiple learning methods and approaches. We use case method of teaching, projects, lectures, workshops, and whole host of things. At the end of the program, you get an MBA degree, which is a full-time program on campus. So you get an MBA degree from IIM. And this is a program where there is extensive industry participation, both in terms of design of the program, as well as in terms of the delivery of the program. So we are very proud of the fact that the program's relevance continues to be very high, simply because of a very competent advisory board that guides us in terms of the content of the program. Likewise, many of them are involved in delivery. And of course, I'm glad to say that IIM Udaipur is a premier institution which has received many accolades in the short journey of 9 years of its existence. And this year, it was ranked in the Financial Times top 100 programs in the world, what we call Masters in Management. There are only four IIMs in the country which have been ranked in this program. IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Bangalore, IIM Calcutta, and IIM Udaipur. Likewise, we received the QS World University ranking. We are there on top. And we also have the prestigious AACSB accreditation. So I would encourage you to explore more and understand more. And I hope that you take the right decision, what is in your best interest. So we hand over back to Uttara for any questions that you may have. I already see that you have many of your posted questions. So Uttara, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, just to reiterate, as both professors have mentioned, if you all have any questions, please feel free to write them in the Q&A section and in the Q&A box, and I will be happy to read them out. So getting started, Sir Aditya has sent us a question asking whether having prior experience in leading digital transformation initiatives would provide any extra weightage to his profile. Professor Agarwal, Professor Shekhar, if you all would like to.
Very difficult to give a pointed answer to this question. Aditya, I would like to say that your profile will definitely be considered in its totality. And in that context, what is the kind of work you've done, what kind of academic background you have, will also feature. So this is not a program where we are trying to look at, point of rejection, saying that we take one factor and everything else is ignored. So this is a very holistic approach, and a kind of a factor of judgment applied on that. So I'm sorry, I'm not able to give you a binary answer as a yes or a no. Best is to experience it by applying.
And Shekhar, if it's okay, I'll try to take a stab at it. This is Aditya Singh, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So I can tell you how we have looked at the graduates of this program, right, in Deloitte. I know my team has gone for campus recruitment. I know we made a couple of offers, one or two offers, if I recall. It's a small batch this year. With that said, the way we are hiring the DEM students is to come into what we call our applied AI team. It is part of our advanced analytics team within Deloitte, which is focused on solving business problems using data and using complex algorithms to solve for those business problems. All of you are aware of the fact that there is and we actually hire people with statistics team. So we have coming from Indian Statistical Institute or institutes like ISI, as well as business graduates, come together to kind of create this hybrid team that understands both the business side of the problem as well as the algorithm side of data, to pull that team together to provide a comprehensive solution back to the client using the data sets that they have available to solve that business problem, whether it is how do I keep my customers to pay more, how do I provide just-in-time service to my customers, how do I reduce fraud in transactions that I do. And all of these, I think Professor Rajesh kind of talked about this early on in his conversation. None of these are unidimensional problems. None of these come in with a tag that says this is a marketing problem, this is a data problem. They're just a problem. It's a problem for the business. And our ability to pull the points of view together to provide a solution that addresses the problem is what differentiates us. And from a DEM standpoint, what we are looking for is a student who, through their prior experience or training, has developed an understanding of technical aspects of the business, and through the DEM program has figured out how to combine the technical aspects with management discipline to ultimately solve a business problem, right? Every business problem has a solution, and every solution always leads itself back to technology. There is no other way to solve a problem these days, right? Gone are the days when you are a strategy consultant that can put a PowerPoint in front of an executive and command a $5 million fee. Clients are not paying us for that anymore. So we have to provide that point of view, but we also have to kind of put that solution in place. And usually that solution is always a technology solution. So I think DEM, in my mind, sits at that sweet spot of both understanding the business side of the house as well as the technical or technological solution side of the house. And you act as that bridge. And that's where kind of the business analyst roles or consultant roles that Shekhar was alluding to earlier kind of come into play. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Kamesh. Lovely.
Thank you, sir. I think that also addresses a few of the questions other participants had shared. And hopefully, Bharat, that addresses one part of your question. But sirs, what I would like to raise is, I think Kushagra and Bharat had both raised a question regarding experience. Kushagra asking whether having 6 years of experience and for Bharat 10.75 years of experience, what implication might that have on their application?
Yeah, so Rajesh, you want to start?
Right. So based on our experience in the other programs which we run, 1-year MBA program, because DEM is the first program, our experience has been that the companies who come to the campus for recruitment are typically looking at candidates who are largely in the 3 to 8 years of experience range. Uh, Anybody who has more than 8 years of experience, 8 to 10, are typically hired by companies through lateral placement processes, and they are not typically coming to campuses for placements. So in that sense, it is somewhat harder to place. When it becomes more than 10 years, it's somewhat even harder to get a placement. While you will certainly benefit a lot by attending a program if you have over 10 years of experience, you have to be aware about the challenges that it might involve in terms of placements. So, as I said, there have been instances where that somebody has been more than 10 years of experience but placed, but those cases are very few. So we believe that it's important to take that piece of information in mind. Some candidates who have more than 10 years of experience have come in another kind of arrangement where they have taken a leave or sabbatical from their company, if their company is willing to provide them that leave, and then they go back to the company when there's no issue of a placement. But if you're resigning from your jobs with more than 10 years of experience, you have to be aware about that possible risk where the placement may be harder for you, is what I'd like to say. But like to hear your thoughts, Mr. Kamesh and Shekhar, if you have some thoughts on this.
Obviously, I won't comment on the admissions process itself, but from a placement perspective, I think the comments that you made resonate. It's probably not politically correct for me to say it, but we like students that are less experienced. It's easier for us to train them and put them in roles that are important for our business. And I'm talking specifically for consulting. So we've generally historically looked at students with less than 5 years of experience, but I know for sure, and I've been to many campus recruitment efforts over the last 10 years or so across the business schools in India. Number of our competitors do hire candidates with more than 5 years of experience fairly easily, right? So I think the 3 to 8 year number that you talked about, Professor Rajesh, I think makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Kamesh. Thank you, Rajesh. Yeah, I would definitely endorse those thoughts. As a person interacting with the industry and understanding their needs and expectations, what comes out very clearly is mass of the or bulk of the hiring that the industry does from campuses is in that age group of 3 to 8. In that, different companies have their own kind of policies. However, those who are not looking for a switchover of jobs, and therefore what Rajesh mentioned as coming on a sabbatical, definitely gets the advantage of learning the new technology and applying it in the context of solving industry problems and going back to the organization at a different role altogether. That opportunity does exist.
Thank you, sirs, for all of your input. We have a question coming in from Akhil. What are the chances for the DEM batch of 2021-22 to be inducted on campus? Is it possible that the start date be postponed so that the entire course can be conducted on campus? Professor Rajesh, would you like to take this?
So the answer is not unique to IIM Udaipur. The answer is common to all institutions of higher learning throughout the country, because we go by the regulations and guidelines of Ministry of Education. So if the Ministry of Education were to permit institutions such as ours to conduct classes on campus, we will be more than happy to have you here, conduct the classes on campus. But as the regulations stand today, while the students are staying in hostels on campus, but we are not allowed to conduct classes on campus. Now, whether the classes will be conducted online or on campus on face-to-face basis, it's your guess versus my guess. Nobody knows as to how things will pan out on 6th of May. We are hoping that we get the permission by that time, but nobody can say for a certainty. So that's the first part of your question. The second part of your question was, I'm just trying to get that start date. Now, start date is not going to change because, even for the current batch that we have, that's the time the pandemic had hit. And everybody said, okay, let's wait for 2 weeks and everything will clear out. And then we waited for 2 weeks and then said 2 more weeks. And then we realized it's a long haul, right? And there's no point waiting any longer. So I must say one thing, and Uttara is here as a participant of the current program. Uh, Attending the program in an online mode is more of a mindset issue than a real issue. It's a mindset issue for faculty. It's a mindset issue for the participants. In fact, I can vouch as a faculty who teaches in this program that I realize that there are many things that I could do as a faculty in the online mode, which I would have never done in a face-to-face setting, right? So there are disadvantages of doing online, but there are also advantages of doing it online. And I believe that the learning outcomes of doing program online are not compromised, because it's our promise to the industry when somebody walks out with a degree or a diploma of an IIM that our product is the same as another periods of time. So it is not say this is a COVID batch, so it knows only half the concepts as compared to other batches. We can't say that. We can't do that, right? And that's where we believe that I would encourage you to think about it, that you will realize that wherever you join, your learning outcomes will not be compromised if the program is delivered with high quality.
Thank you, sir. Professor Shekhar, would you like to add?
I would actually, compliment Rajesh for putting it so well. The question keeps coming up all the time, whether it's online, on campus kinds, and the net result is the learning outcome. And I would actually take this through an example of the current batch, which Uttara, you can substantiate. When we had conceptualized the program, it was supposed to be on campus, and we had gone ahead with the start dates, which were supposed to be at the time when the pandemic broke out. And this first batch of students kind of said that they would prefer it to be postponed, like Rajesh mentioned, and we agreed. And we figured out that, there is no end line to this particular activity. And we took a firm decision of going online. And the first thing we did was give all the students the option to either, participate in the program or withdraw completely from the program or even defer their admission. Because we realized that in the event there is any difference in the learning experience, then we are the ones to take ownership of it. We don't want you to, as students, to take ownership of that. So having done so, we then came to this problem of one particular course called design thinking, which was conceptualized to be a workshop-oriented teaching. And we kind of thought through it and were trying to figure out how this course would be delivered. And guess what? There was technology that provided the same kind of an experience that the students would have had they been on campus. And that kind of gave us the impetus to actually say a course like design thinking, which is highly creative, can be taught online, can be worked, or projects can be done on design thinking online, and the students can collaborate online to come up with solutions. And Uttara being part of that particular batch, they have gone out to get industry projects, which they are in the process of solving using the concepts of design thinking. And everything has happened online. So we are seeing the power of technology. We are seeing how it can, when used in the right context, can give the benefit. Also, some of the other factors which are native, for instance, people say, can we make eye contact, or do we get that energy from the class that we would get when we are in person? They may not reflect in the same manner, but over a period of time, it kinds of settles down into the learning outcome. And both faculty and students find their ways or their rhythms to actually understand each other and interact. And that's what this particular batch has discovered too. So we don't now differentiate between online and on campus, except that the program is designed to be on campus, And the day the government gives us the permission, we will do on campus. That's how it is. So Uttara, there was one more part of the earlier question of Kushagra, which I'm seeing now. What roles and responsibilities will we get after placement? I would like to hold on to that question some more time because we covered that in the presentation. But if Kushagra still feels that the question needs to be answered, we'll pick it up a little later.
Sure, sir. I'll take a note of that.
Yeah.
Thank you, professors. The next couple of questions come in from Pranvendra, who one has asked if we may shed some light on the composition of the current batch in terms of age and experience, as well as if placements are currently ongoing, and he has a concern that the average might decrease. So, Professor Shekhar, would you like to address that?
Sure. Pravendra, good question. And if you're guessing, we can guess any which way. It's dropping or increasing. Both can happen. And what I would look at is how is the market responding? This is not something that we can influence or control or do anything about from an institute's perspective. What we can do and what we can do best is to prepare these students. And the industry comes and looks at them and feels like hiring them, they would hire. If the job is right and the salary is right, the average will go up. Now, these are scenarios or situations that we need to respond to. And that is what we would do. So I would not hazard a guess at this point of time. I would look at it in terms of saying, do we stand committed to all the students who are yet to be placed, which is the 60% of the batch is yet to be placed? The answer is yes. So we keep our conversations intact with the industry. The industry is also responding. They're just coming back from their break. So we are expecting the traction to pick up in the next week or so. So placement activities will start all over again. So that's point number one. The composition of the class, there are 4 women who are there, and Uttara is one of them. And they come with kind of a different background. There are people from science backgrounds, commerce backgrounds, and people with engineering backgrounds. There are people with computer science background in engineering and people with non-computer background in engineering itself. So it's quite diverse. Also, the work experience is spread across. There are people, as you know, minimum is 3 years, but the class average is closer to 6 years. So everybody is upwards of 4 years. And the highest is closer to about 8 years. That's how the distribution is.
Thank you, sir. The next question is coming in from Kunal. He would first like to thank the panel for the wonderful presentation and has asked that we elaborate a little bit about the executive training for each student. So I would like to address that question. So Kunal, we were, for our batch, we were part of 2 different kinds of executive coaching programs, one being in the group setting and one individual. In terms of the group setting, it was preparing us for entering industry again, whether it was from a break due to our education or a longer break or whatever the case may be, as well as preparing us for the rapidly kind of changing environment that is the nature of any digital enterprise. With respect to the individual coaching, for me personally, I can say that that was very helpful in terms of preparing us mentally to be able to enter into very different roles than the ones we had come with experience in, as well as in understanding how best to be able to be, as Kamesh sir rightly mentioned in the beginning, resilient in this environment. And so it was providing us with certain tools to be able to keep our end game and our long-term vision very much in our minds, but being able to address constant changes that were happening in the work environment. So each of us were given, in terms of structure, we were each given about 3 to 4 sessions of individual coaching, as well as 3 to 4 sessions of a group setting. So I hope that answered that question.
I would like to add something here. I mean,
course, sir, yes.
thanks for sharing the experience. That's important for us to hear. But why did we do it is the question I want to answer. This is not a common practice that we introduce executive coaching to students of management. But we looked at it from the perspective that the students of DEM are going to be solving problems in a highly volatile environment. And the volatility of the environment is such that past experience may not be relevant to solve the problems of future. In such situations, what kind of skills, what kind of talent do you actually tap on is the question that we're trying to answer. So if there is a problem for which there is a solution already known, in future that will be done by machines. So the students of this program are going to be solving problems that are yet to be solved. It's like a first time or an unprecedented or something which is complex and, like Kamesh said, requires multidisciplinary thinking process. It can't be done with just one lens of, marketing or an operations or an HR or a finance kinds. So for this, you need to understand that DEM teaches you certain things, but what DEM teaches you most is the ability to learn on your own. How do you equip yourself? How do you understand your own capabilities? Who are you at the end of the day? What kind of an emotional bundle of person are you? And through that, how do you develop your decision-making skills? So one is the intellectual side, where we use data, where we use design thinking, and we use statistics and economics to develop you. The other side is to emotionally develop you to look at your gut, your instinct, your judgment, those kind of sides of decision making. So this is where we feel that the program is pretty holistic.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure that was very helpful to Kunal and the rest of the listeners. One of the questions we have coming in is with respect to how many batches have been successfully completed of the DEM program. I think, as both professors had mentioned, we are currently the first batch of the program that is going to graduate next year. Sirs, would you all like to add anything there?
So in numeric form, it's 0.
Yes.
Yeah, and if I may, actually, Uttara, just having been part of some of the early discussions with the director and the leadership and the faculty at IMU, I'll say it's an incredibly courageous thing for IIM Udaipur to take this program on. One of the complaints, and I was pretty vocal about it for a long time, one of the complaints that we've had about a number of the programs, a number of schools that we go to, undergraduate as well as postgraduate schools, is the students' ability to relate to real world problems from a business standpoint. And what Shekhar, Professor Rajesh, and others have done is to take that input to heart and very quickly decided to create a program that caters to the business's needs. So while this is probably the first batch, I do expect that this program is going to set the bar for how to think differently in terms of coming up with new course curricula that is relevant to businesses and enterprises going forward. And I certainly am committed to making this successful, because I'm involved as well, and I want to see that success for myself. I think it's a remarkable program that IIM Udaipur has taken on, and I'm truly excited about the possibilities, and of course the current batch as well as all the future batches that are going to come up.
Thank you so much, Kamesh, sir, for that perspective. We have a couple of questions coming in about the roles and responsibilities that prospective students can expect to take up moving forward. So, Shekhar, sir, would you like to address this?
We'll take that in the end because
Sure.
we kind of put that in the presentation, but if it's still unanswered, I would like to explain that in the end.
Sure, sir. moving on, there is a question from Rupesh. Dear panelists, how do you see this program helping someone in banking sector, especially if someone has work experience in public sector banks? I'd like to open this question up to the panel.
Rajesh, would you like to?
So I think the banking sector, in fact, interestingly, as we speak, we are doing a program for the Reserve Bank of India in terms of the role of digital, and in the regulatory role. And this whole world is unfolding in such a massive way that use of data and technology in terms of internal controls, in terms of making sure that banks become more efficient, in terms of getting better at what they are doing, the sky is the limit. So while I'm not getting into the nuances of how banks would benefit from the digital, but that is one sector where I'm sure they will benefit one of the best. I don't know if Mr. Kamesh would like to add more to this.
Yeah, no, so one of the pitfalls of being a strategy consultant is that confirmed belief that we can answer any question. So I'm trying to kind of hold myself back from exercising that judgment all the time. But I'll probably say this, right? And with the comments that Professor Rajesh that you made on Reserve Bank and what banking is going through. Think of cryptocurrency, blockchain, and banking. I think that's a fascinating space. Obviously, Bitcoin at 33,000 is a headline these days. It was not higher than 5,000 less than a year ago. For those of you that either invest in or follow cryptocurrency markets, so I think the way the world banking system is thinking about cryptocurrency, the world banking system is thinking about fraud and use of blockchain in kind of preventing fraud, and the distributed ledger system and things like that. I think there is a lot there that is tremendous opportunity from innovation and disruption standpoint. So those of you that are in banking, that understand banking and the nuances of banking, whether it's public sector or private sector, and marry it up with learning that comes from a program like DEM, and more importantly around blockchain, for example, I think it's going to be incredibly powerful. You may be about a year or two ahead to the party, but you will certainly be in the party.
True, Kamesh. That last portion is the one that needs to be emphasized on. What the students are currently learning puts them actually ahead of the kind of problems that the organizations are going to be solving. So you're actually ready to take on problems that are going to come in. And in term 3 of DEM, there's a course on fintech, which is the application of digital in the banking and finance sector. So it's highly relevant. I mean, to put that answer very succinctly, yes, it is highly relevant with somebody having a background in banking.
Thank you, sirs. We have a question from Ajinkya asking whether this course can be done by a non-IT professional.
Yes, of course, Ajinkya. Do you have a follow-up question, or we assume that non-IT can be understood as anything? So, like I said, the current batch has students from commerce, arts, as well as science backgrounds. So none of them from these backgrounds have had formal IT education. And this course does not mandate prior software experience or IT domain expertise or experience of any kind. But you must have the attitude and the aptitude to deal with technology, in the sense that you're not somebody who's completely averse to using technology to working on or to solving problems. That's the only thing that we look for.
Thank you, sir. So sirs, we have two questions coming in regarding the exam scores and the test scores, asking whether if a candidate has 10 plus years of experience, would they need to write the Gmat or the CAT exam? And following that, whether we could share the average CAT and Gmat score of the batch, also to confirm whether the CAT 2019 score is valid for the program. Professor Rajesh,
All
would
right,
you?
I'll attempt an answer to this. So, as I said, that an entry requirement is that you have to have at least one of the three exam scores, whether GMAT or a GRE or a CAT. So, no matter how many years of experience do you have to have a valid score of one of these three exams. 2019 CAT score is certainly valid, so you can apply with that. We are not in a position to share as of now any average score or minimum score, as I mentioned to you, because we mentioned that we look at the applications in totality. And I think that pretty much answers Piyush's questions, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. We have another question coming in from Pramil. Is there any set of courses that we should prepare before joining the program so that the program will start and he might be able to grab things easier?
Right. So I can answer that. So perhaps you need not worry about it so much now. Once you're offered an admission at some point in time, our programs office will share with you kind of courses that you must refresh before coming to campus. And if there is any payment involved in doing these courses, we will be, kind of funding that payment. So if you are already admitted or those who will be admitted, we will be getting in touch with those participants and share with them what kind of preparatory courses they need to do, and that will be helpful for them. So as of now, I don't think there's any need to worry about any prior preparation before joining the program.
Thank you, sir. Aniket has asked a question. How was the experience working in the capstone project? What were the challenges faced as people were working from home? So I'd like to address this question. We are still midway through our capstone projects, but I think it's been a very relevant kind of experience for all of us because it's really putting the conceptual knowledge to the test while working with actual organizations to solve real problems that they're having. In terms of the challenges faced with regard to working from home, I think the challenges haven't actually been as difficult to navigate as we expected going in. I think for us as students, it was a lot easier because we had already been studying in the online mode and doing our internal group projects in the online mode. So I'm not too sure how many challenges I may be able to highlight here, but of course, it would be a different experience to have a face-to-face interaction with some of our industry sponsors. But in terms of the challenges faced in being able to deliver, we haven't yet really faced too many challenges in terms of us being able to achieve what we set out to achieve yet. Professor Shekhar, Professor Rajesh, would you all like to add anything?
No, it's directly from the horses or other mares' mouths, and there is nothing better than getting it from the source.
Thank you, sir. So we have another 3 questions from Pranvendra. The first being, what kind of financial help is possible to students? Are there any scholarships? The second being, how much have professors enjoyed teaching students? Please share anecdotes if possible. And the third being that he has 10.6 years of experience and he's already selected for DEM in round 1, but he doesn't have the options for a sabbatical. So what might be your advice to him?
So that is Siva Ganesh Murthy's question.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry
Yeah,
about that.
and I will answer that separately. Rajesh, would you like to take on?
I would like to answer the question with respect to what has been the experience of faculty members teaching in this program. As somebody who has taught in this program and I continue to teach, including today, some of the participants, I'll tell you just 2-3 examples of how technology enabled teaching. You can do things that you can't do otherwise. So one of the best methods of teaching globally, including India, is what we call case method of teaching, where we bring a real life problem from industry to the classroom and we discuss that. And that requires a lot of participation in the classroom. Now, the limitation of participation in the classroom mode is only one person can speak at a time. Here, if I keep the chat open, I can see variety of answers coming in the chat section, which I can't do it in on-campus mode. I can conduct polls in between the class as frequently as I wish and get a quick thought of the class. What does the class think about it? I can bring in a PDF file and paste it on OneNote while teaching and show you live how numbers are calculated, and which I'm not able to do in a Blackboard situation. I have to run from one end to the other, and here I can do it much faster. So there are a whole host of those experiences that are available online, which are not available on face-to-face setup, right? So I think I've answered that question.
Rajesh, I would like to add one point here. It's not so much about the teaching, but the other advantage that has happened on account of online is that we've had scenarios where multiple faculty members could collaborate and speak together. So we had scenarios where we could actually tap into the best in the subject kind of a situation who would come and speak on that topic while the subject, a general subject was being taught. So we could get in a lot of participation from the experts almost at short notice. So that helped. And that's part of the online experience too.
Thank you, sir. The other part of Ranvendra's question was with regards to financial aid and scholarships. Professor?
I would like to answer that. So, in the 1-year program, unfortunately, we don't have any financial aid for the moment. We have that arrangement in the 2-year MBA program for candidates who are eligible. But as of now, we don't have, unfortunately, any financial aid arrangement.
Thank you, sir. Yes, so Professor Shekhar, would you like to address?
So my request to Siva Ganesh Murthy, first, thank you for attending this particular webinar. And if you can connect with the admissions office, they will connect you with me. And I will speak to you regarding your question, because it needs to be taken in context of your expectations. It's not fair on my part to make a global response here. So I would prefer to take this one-on-one with you. And the method is that you can write to our admissions office and they will facilitate a meeting point for us. I hope that's fine with you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to invite the attendees to, if you have any last questions, to please add them to the Q&A box. We have one question from Aditya Singh asking why this is a 1-year program rather than a traditional 2-year MBA provided by most of the IIMs. I'd like to open this up to the panel.
I would like to answer that. So you would have seen that, even other IIMs, even globally, you have two different kinds of programs, 2-year MBA programs and 1-year MBA programs, what is sometimes referred to as executive MBA program. Now, this program, based on the inputs received from the industry, was considered that it would be wonderful if some people who join this program have some industry experience. And then with that, we build on and then introduce the concepts of management, bring in the digital. So 1 year is something that they can perhaps come out of rather than coming out for 2 years. So in terms of the requirements of the program, it was considered 1 year is going to be enough rather than having 2 years. It is not to suggest we don't have a 2-year program. We also have a 2-year program, but that's a different offering. That's a general management program. That's an MBA program, where this is context specific to digital, and this is only 1-year MBA program.
Thank you, sir. So I think that brings us to the end of all of the previous questions asked. There is still the question regarding roles and responsibilities. If Shekhar, sir, you would like to address this.
Sure. So as we had indicated, the roles that organizations have offered for DEM students, they're largely in the areas of the initial stage of digital transformation. So it is either on the analytics side or it's on the business strategy side using technology, or it is in the area of customer interaction, which is the experience management side. Broadly, if I were to use some of the references from the past, which may not be accurate but can kind of communicate better, these are positions like program manager, project manager in the traditional world, to looking at business analyst or a tech analyst who's using a lot of data to bring in strategy for a particular situation, or looking at digital transformation advisors. So how they become the people who are hand-holding a digital transformation for a client organization. So these are the kinds of typical roles that are there. There is also the uh, most popular product management role, which comes in. Um, in the digital world, product management itself is undergoing a huge change. It no longer remains within the product. It goes into the area of experience, which is what the other example I took was, of a customer experience journey, rather than looking at it from a product's perspective. So to summarize, there's a project management kind of a role, there's a program management kind of a role that come in either on the internal product side of digital or technology, or it is in a transformational side, which is a customer facing activity. Excuse me. It is also in the area of product management, which is largely dealing with experience, as well as on the data science side, which is use of analytics for the business or for looking at solving specific problems.
Thank you, sir. We have one more question coming in from Kunal. As there are some discussions going on between the Government of India and the IIMs regarding the one-year MBA programs, would the upcoming batch class of 22 be offered an MBA degree or a postgraduate diploma?
So I'd like to answer that. So we believe, based on the Indian Institute of Management Act passed by the Parliament in 2017, the Board of Governors of the respective IIMs are empowered to decide on the duration and the kind of award, whether in terms of degree or diploma, that will be granted. However, Ministry of Education has raised some concerns about it. And so we are working as we speak with the government to find a resolution. As of now, there is no change, right? So as of now, there is no change. They have raised a concern, so we are in conversation with them, and we believe that we'll find a common ground. Till such time that happens, we shall continue to be granting MBA degrees.
Thank you, sir. We have a question from Bharat asking if the Gmat score needs to be submitted officially or whether the report alone would suffice.
So maybe Tanu, if she's on call, she can clarify.
Sure, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the person can submit the Gmat score in the application, an official score. You don't have to send it directly from a Gmat site.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that brings us to the end of the questions that have already been submitted. I'd like to thank the panel for their time and invite any closing comments that you all might have.
Right. So I would like to take this opportunity of thanking Mr. Kamesh, first of all, to find time to speak to all the prospective participants, because it's nothing like getting to hear from him for reasons more than one. First of all, he's the founder member of this advisory board on this DEM. And with their guidance and inputs, we have kind of gone ahead and then designed this program. And also there are people from his company who are teaching in this program. And today he found time to speak to you. So very grateful to him for finding time to speak to you. And I wish and hope that all of you think carefully about it and you take the decision which is aligned to your career goals and which is in your best interest, because ultimately it's you who are going to invest in this time in terms of time and resources. So you need to be very confident of what you are doing. From our perspective, we believe digital is the future, and then this program is a unique program and holds a lot of promise. So with that note, I would like to thank everybody and have a good evening. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.